Imagine traveling back in time to a world where Homo sapiens is not the only intelligent species. Amidst harsh ice ages and shadowy caves, a group of humans roams the land, beings strikingly similar to us, yet destined for a different fate. Who were the Neanderthals? How did they live? And why did they disappear? This is a story you need to know. Genetic studies on well-preserved Neanderthal and modern human bones have revealed that the last common ancestor of both species lived approximately 690,000 to 550,000 years ago, an estimate that aligns well with fossil evidence. As mentioned in previous sections, scientists widely agree that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens emerged separately through speciation in populations of Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthals in Europe, and modern humans in Africa. However, genetic research has also debunked two major misconceptions. Neanderthals were neither the direct ancestors of modern humans, nor were they so distinct that genetic mixing was impossible. Recent genome studies have confirmed that interbreeding did occur. In fact, all modern humans, except those of purely African descent, since Neanderthals never lived in Africa, carry on average 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Some of these inherited genes played a crucial role in human adaptation. For example, genes responsible for keratin production helped thicken the skin, improving resistance to cold climates. Others influenced immune system function, contributing to allergy responses and increasing resilience against new environmental conditions. Interestingly, even traits like red hair have been linked to Neanderthal genetic inheritance. The Neanderthal habitat stretched from the westernmost edges of Europe all the way east to the Okladnikov site in southern Siberia. This vast range covered nearly all of Europe, except for the ice-covered northern regions, the Middle East, and parts of Central Asia. Notably, no Neanderthal skeletal remains have ever been found in Africa. Neanderthals deliberately used two main stone tool-making techniques known as the Mousterian and the Levallois methods. They were especially skilled in the Levallois flake production technique, demonstrating remarkable craftsmanship and precision. Many of the tools crafted using these methods, such as spear points, knives, and scrapers, were designed to be hafted onto wooden or bone handles, making them more effective for hunting and daily tasks. This suggests a high level of technological complexity, perhaps comparable to the difference between primate vocalizations and human speech. Primate calls are essentially repeated contractions of the laryngeal muscles. In contrast, composite technologies, tools made of three distinct parts, a handle, a stone tool, and an adhesive, follow a hierarchical structure and require fine motor control to assemble. The ability to combine different components in various ways results in tools with diverse functions, much like grammar, where assembling sounds, words, and phrases in a structured sequence creates meaningful expressions. Changing the order of words alters meaning, just as modifying the arrangement of tool components affects their function. Both speech and composite tool-making rely on a controlled sequence of fine motor movements, which are managed by adjacent regions in the brain. A composite tool might be comparable to a sentence, while explaining how to make one is akin to a recipe or a short story. If the development of composite tools and the emergence of complex language evolved simultaneously around 300,000 years ago, then Neanderthals and anatomically modern humans were likely capable of speech. Still, there's some debate about whether Neanderthals had more complex, abstract forms of vocal communication. It's very likely that their interactions were enriched by a wide range of gestures and body language. Neanderthals should not be judged solely by their stone tools. Wooden artifacts, such as those discovered at the site of Leringen in Germany, including a 238-centimeter-long wooden spear made from yew wood, found alongside stone flakes, demonstrate their use of a diverse range of tools for hunting. When a Neanderthal group moved from one location to another, they often left behind most of their stone tools, crafting new ones at their next settlement. Natural adhesives like resins, grasses, and tree bark were readily available for attaching spearheads. Finding suitable campsites near sources of flint and quartz was as essential to Neanderthals as locating a hardware store would be for modern humans. Neanderthals left behind a rich technological record in the form of tools, yet clear evidence of symbolic behavior is scarce, aside from occasional simple burials. However, during a brief period between 36,000 and 32,000 years ago, an industry known as Châtel Perronien emerged at multiple sites in Spain and France. Named after the site of Châtel-Perron, where pierced objects were discovered alongside stone tools, this industry coincided with the geographical and likely cultural interaction between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Half of the stone tools from this tradition were made using the Levallois technique, yet distinctively modern human artifacts were also present. In addition to stone tools, the Châtel-Perronien industry included intricately crafted ornaments made of bone, teeth, and mammoth ivory, such as the decorative pendants found at Arcy-sur-Cure in France. Compared to the artistic legacy of Homo sapiens, seen in jewelry, paintings, and other symbolic expressions, the number of such artifacts associated with Neanderthals remains significantly limited. Due to their habitation in the cold, high-altitude regions of Eurasia, Neanderthals undoubtedly required suitable body coverings to survive in such harsh climates. This necessity implies that they developed certain tools and techniques to produce adequate clothing. The presence of wear marks on the outer edges of Neanderthal front teeth provides strong evidence that they frequently used their incisors as a third hand to grip and manipulate objects. This distinctive pattern of dental wear is observed only in adult Neanderthals and is absent in children, suggesting that it developed gradually over time as a result of repeated use, likely in tasks such as clothing production. Preparing garments to withstand the frigid Ice Age climate using teeth and bone awls was a time-consuming process. Both Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens relied on clothing not only as insulation against the cold, but also as a means of self-expression. One of the most remarkable aspects of Neanderthal life was their extraordinary ability to adapt to their environment. They endured extreme and recurrent climatic fluctuations that persisted over vast regions for prolonged periods, an achievement that would have been impossible without highly flexible behavioral strategies. Archaeological evidence supports this adaptability, yet no one knows exactly how Neanderthals lived. However, based on the size of sites containing their remains and other artifacts, it is inferred that they lived in relatively small social units, likely consisting of 15 to 30 individuals of varying ages and both sexes. These small groups roamed across vast, sparsely populated landscapes, setting up temporary camps. Once their food resources were depleted, they would move on, continuing their nomadic existence. Over time, as climates shifted, the availability of natural resources also changed. Neanderthals responded by moving from place to place, from valleys to highlands, always in search of what they needed, and often returning to the same places seasonally. Unlike the tropical regions where plant-based food sources were available year-round, Ice Age Europe presented a very different picture. Vegetation was scarce, and its availability changed with the seasons. Because of this, many archaeologists believe that meat made up a large portion of the Neanderthal diet. This also suggests that they must have developed advanced hunting techniques to secure their food. Hunting large animals like mammoths required more than just brute strength. It demanded strategy, planning, and a stockpile of weapons like spears. Chemical analysis of Neanderthal teeth and bones confirms their protein-heavy diets, revealing traces of animals such as mammoths, woolly rhinos, deer, and even bears. But this lifestyle came with risks. Frequent encounters with wild animals left behind a telltale pattern of healed fractures in Neanderthal skeletons, the kind of injuries seen today among professional bullfighters. These injuries suggest that Neanderthals hunted at close range, often engaging in direct physical confrontations with dangerous prey. That's because, unlike Homo sapiens, Neanderthals likely lacked advanced projectile weapons like throwing spears or arrows, or if they had them, they used them rarely. As a result, their hunts were high stakes and high risk. Many suffered serious injuries, and their life expectancy was significantly shorter than ours today. Extensive studies have been done to better understand their hunting practices. Analyses of their tools, especially spear tips, and the damage patterns on animal bones found at Neanderthal sites show clear evidence of close-range hunting. These marks were not caused by thrown weapons, but by direct forceful stabbing with spears, proof that Neanderthals faced their prey head-on in a battle of survival. Most Neanderthals died between the ages of 20 and 30, with only about 20% reaching beyond 40. Bone fractures, chronic conditions like arthritis, and ailments linked to deficiencies such as gum disease all serve as evidence of the harsh and unforgiving reality of the Ice Age. Many elderly Neanderthals exhibit signs of severe bone and joint wear, including arthritis, an indication of a physically demanding life. Additionally, diseases such as rickets and numerous bone fractures suggest episodes of malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies. However, one of the most remarkable aspects of Neanderthal society is the care they provided for their sick and elderly. Skeletal remains of individuals who were clearly incapable of hunting or contributing to daily survival indicate that they lived far beyond their ability to fend for themselves, suggesting they were supported by their group. Neanderthals adapted their diet based on availability, scavenging carcasses, foraging for seeds and plants, and consuming small animals and insects as essential parts of their sustenance. Since most Neanderthal sites are located far from coastlines, it remains unclear how significant fish and shellfish were in their diet. However, the presence of shell remains in caves associated with Neanderthals suggests that they may have occasionally relied on marine and freshwater resources. Like their ancestors, Neanderthals mastered the use of fire. The evidence for this is not merely neatly arranged stones forming hearths, but more convincingly, the substantial amounts of ash found at their archaeological sites. While cultural artifacts such as jewelry and paintings are scarce in Neanderthal archaeological records, there is substantial evidence of their burial practices. Deliberate burials by Neanderthals date back at least 50,000 years, offering profound insights into their capacity for abstract thought. The fact that they did not simply abandon their dead, but instead prepared for their passing, suggests a significant cognitive leap. However, Neanderthal burials were not necessarily imbued with spiritual beliefs or concepts of an afterlife in the way modern burials are. Instead, they may have been acts of empathy toward the deceased, a means of honoring them, or perhaps a practical measure to prevent scavengers from being drawn to decaying remains. Regardless of the motivation, what remains crucial is that Neanderthals engaged in burial practices, albeit infrequently and often in a simplistic manner. To date, over 35 Neanderthal burials have been discovered, all within caves and rock shelters. The bodies were placed in shallow graves, either lying on their backs or positioned on their sides with legs drawn up. Grave goods were rare, with only a few exceptions, such as the placement of an ibex horn in the burial of a young Neanderthal boy at Teshik Tash in Uzbekistan. In the 1970s, the discovery of Neanderthal remains at Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan, along with traces of pollen, led to the hypothesis that they adorned graves with flowers. However, modern analysis suggests that these pollen traces likely entered the graves naturally after the burial, rather than as part of a funerary rite. No other Neanderthal burial has yielded fossilized flower pollen, though some graves contained objects such as stones, animal bones, and teeth, possibly remnants of daily life intentionally placed with the deceased. In burials at sites like La Ferracie, Spy, and La Chapelle aux Saints in France, traces of red ochre pigment have been found. Yet, scientists remain uncertain about the role of these pigments in Neanderthal burials, and whether they held ritualistic or symbolic significance. The question of what ultimately happened to the Neanderthals and what caused the extinction of this remarkably successful human species that walked the earth for hundreds of thousands of years remains a topic of ongoing debate. Many theories have been proposed. Some once believed that modern humans wiped out the Neanderthals in violent conflict, or that a deadly epidemic swept through their communities. But today, such scenarios are largely seen as flawed. Given the small and scattered human populations in prehistoric Europe, the idea of organized warfare or large-scale invasions between modern humans and Neanderthals is highly unlikely. Moreover, there is no archaeological evidence of any widespread disease affecting Neanderthal remains. And even if such a disease had existed, it would have required high population density and frequent contact between communities, conditions that simply didn't apply to Neanderthal society. Instead, the most widely accepted explanation today is the theory of competition. When two closely related species share the same ecological niche, competing for food, shelter, and space, one eventually gains the upper hand. Scholars believe this is what happened between modern Homo sapiens sapiens and Neanderthals around 50,000 years ago. Modern humans began gradually encroaching on Neanderthal territories between 50,000 and 60,000 years ago. They were more effective hunters, possessed more advanced stone tool technologies, and had more complex language abilities, which allowed for greater social organization and cooperation. Furthermore, early Homo sapiens exhibited higher reproductive success than Neanderthals. Archaeological evidence suggests that Neanderthals experienced increased birth-related mortality and declining fertility rates during this period. This demographic advantage allowed Homo sapiens to expand their territory over thousands of years, gradually pushing Neanderthals to more marginal areas. With their lower reproductive rates and reduced access to resources, Neanderthals slowly faded from existence. However, they did not vanish without a trace. Genetic studies confirm that interbreeding between the two species took place, leaving a lasting Neanderthal legacy within the DNA of modern non-African human populations. But one thing is clear: Neanderthals were not an inferior version of us. They were our closest relatives and the fiercest rivals of our ancestors in the fight for survival. The nature of the interactions between Neanderthals and modern humans remains shrouded in mystery, though it is clear that these interactions, whatever they were, did not last long. The precise date of Neanderthal extinction cannot be determined with certainty, but there is no evidence of them after about 27,000 years ago. The last fossil evidence of this human species has been found in caves near Zafaria in Spain, Gorum in Gibraltar, and Vindija in Croatia. Most of the remains from the later Neanderthals date back to around 31,000 years ago, discovered at sites such as Figueira Brava in Portugal, Arcy-sur-Cure, and Saint-Césaire in France, along with several other locations. In summary, Neanderthals were capable hunters, tool makers, fire controllers, caregivers for the elderly and sick, and they even displayed signs, though limited, of symbolic thinking. However, many mysteries about them still remain unsolved. In the next video, we will explore some of the most significant discoveries related to the Neanderthals. If you want to learn more about these mysterious relatives, make sure not to miss the next video.